Welcome to the Primo's Musings podcast.
Hey, good evening, Dan. How are you doing?
Good evening. Great. Thank you.
I know it has been a while, and I think our last podcast was the British Open preview, which Xander won it. But we didn't do a recap because I think we're traveling and we didn't get a chance to do it. But we pivot our focus now to the Olympic Games. But I know there are so many events to cover in the Olympic Games, so usually I do like a daily recap for like when we have like the French Open or Wimbledon. But uh, for this time, I think I'm just going to focus on a few events here and there. And I think one event in particular that we both are interested in was the men's singles final between Alcaraz and Djokovic, part two, in just a month and a half. So wanted to hear your thoughts after I know you got to watch, and then we'll also pivot to golf because that was something amazing as well. So let's start with the tennis part of it, and then we'll even cover a couple of track and field events as well. So, giving you the floor right here.
All right. Thank you. So, yeah, it's kind of funny that with the Olympics, we're, focusing at first on the, tennis and golf, because up until a few Olympics ago, golf and tennis were obviously not events. We don't think of as the Olympics. We traditionally as a individual sport more, or more like, it's focused on gymnastics, track and field, stuff like that, as opposed to the individual sports, which have their own majors and their own focuses. But I'm glad tennis is part of it because we got to see, like you said, Djokovic, Alcaraz part two within the last 3 weeks, we'll call it, or so, since Wimbledon, where Djoker kind of got woodshedded quite a bit by Alcaraz in the finals in three straight sets. But no, I think this. I mean, I wasn't sure how into it I would get with the Olympics and tennis and all that. Just it's not a major. I kind of said that, it's not that big a deal. But as the two, were on opposite sides of the brackets, and they keep progressing and winning all their matchups, then it got to be kind of inevitable that they were going to have another heavyweight championship fight in the finals, and the build-up was pretty cool. Just watching it happen, and the stage couldn't have been any greater either. With Roland Garros, which is the site where obviously Djoker had to pull out in the semifinals with his meniscus tear, so we weren't even sure when we last saw him take center court there if he was going to be able to play in first of all, in the Olympics, let alone Wimbledon, like 3 weeks later after he had surgery, a day after he had to default. And then Alcaraz, obviously, when he was last on that court, he was the champion over there at the French Open. So yeah, so this was a classic final yesterday. It was only 2 out of 3 sets, which I didn't realize that. I thought maybe it would be 3 out of 5, the Olympics finals. But I think it was a good thing for Djokovic that it was 2 out of 3, just because with his fitness, I mean, his fitness level is still superb, probably among the top 5. But coming off the surgery with his knee and all, I think it was very beneficial for him just to have to kind of get it going for 2 sets. And I believe you watched this whole match too. I watched it back later in the day. I think you watched it live. I watched it back later in the afternoon. Every point, it was just remarkable. All no breaks of serve, plenty of break chances in this match. I think Alcaraz had about 8 or 10 break points, and Djokovic, I think, had about 6 or 7 break points, I'm guessing. But just the quality of the tennis and the rallies, and I think, as good a match as the two have played. I know we did a podcast last year after the Cincinnati Open where the two had a phenomenal match. I think this topped that one. I think is level of play. Just the quality of the rallies, the shot making, the clay court. I think obviously made the points that much longer. Some of the winners that I thought would have been winners on any kind of typical court. Obviously at Wimbledon, at the U.S. Open, this court obviously extended the rallies the way Djokovic and Alcaraz were able to make stab lobs and just extend points and then kind of get on the defensive and then become the aggressor once again in the point. There was just so many points where it's just you just couldn't believe there would be a point that would top that one later in the match. And so yeah, we saw 24 holds of serve, and then we saw Djokovic do what he does best in the tiebreaker, go into lockdown mode, and I think he won pretty easily in the tiebreakers. I think 7-4 7-3 and 7-4, or 7-3 and 7-2. And it was just, like I said, superb tennis from both of them. Maybe Djokovic, maybe Alcaraz was a little bit loose on a few points. Where I heard an interview today with Patrick McEnroe and Mad Dog saying how once in a while Alcaraz still might just be too aggressive at the wrong point in some of the points where he just kind of shoots himself out of the point with a shot that maybe he shouldn't quite go for. Which he's still a little on the young side, still learning a few things, but yeah, I was just blown away by the quality of tennis. Djokovic, you could see how much he wanted this match afterwards. He's obviously now got what he's called the Golden Slam with the gold medal, and then obviously all 4 other events, 24 other majors. And he was just so emotional afterwards with the flag going up to his family and crying, and you could just see how much he wanted it for himself, for his country. It really meant a lot to him. And yeah, I mean, we saw just an amazing treat yesterday. So those are kind of my thoughts. I'll flip it over to you, see what your takeaways were.
Yeah, I think I got a chance. That's a good analysis. I got to watch the match live, pretty much every point, right from the first point. So got to see. Initially, in the first set, it seemed like both the players were a little, nervous. I mean, they definitely had every shot in the book that you see Alcaraz with his traditional and signature drop shots from time to time. Definitely testing Djokovic's knee, but one thing I did see from Djokovic, which was slightly different from the Wimbledon, was some of the shots he hit on the run were just incredible. I think that must be something to do with the way he was moving, much better on the knee. He's able to move, slide through on the court, and then whip that forehand past Alcaraz. And there was sometimes even Alcaraz seemed surprised with Djokovic is, I would say, the pace and also the movement in general. Um, I think a little surprising for Alcaraz. Like I think to your point where Patrick McEnroe's point about where Alcaraz uh, maybe seemed a little bit overconfident because he knew that Djokovic was not completely. He thought Djokovic was not completely 100%. But to his credit, Djokovic, once it got to the uh, tiebreaker, I knew that Djokovic would play way differently than Alcaraz. And one thing that happens in tiebreakers is that the margin of error is so small, and this is where Djokovic is one of the masters in tiebreakers. He plays every point, and not that Alcaraz doesn't do that, but he knows that he puts the pressure on the opponent, and that's exactly what he did. Got a couple of points, and once he got a mini break, he just put more pressure on Alcaraz, and then that forced Alcaraz to go for some big shots, hit the ball into the net, and then once the tide started to turn, Djokovic got the first set, and just like that. And then the first set, Djokovic did have many breakpoint opportunities. He was down. Alcaraz was actually down love 40 on his serve, but Djokovic, he managed to save it, but then pushed it to the tiebreaker. Many times, I think 3-4 all. I think in the first set, Alcaraz had like a couple of break points on Djokovic, but Djokovic came up with his big serve one time, and then the other time he actually came up with another great serve, body serve, and moved Alcaraz and finished the point with a blistering forehand. So some of these shots that Djokovic hit definitely seemed to have surprised Alcaraz. And in the second set, it was almost a repeat. Um, I think the Cincinnati one, I think when we watched that match, and then we did the podcast right after that because the quality was such a high level. Um, I believe that, and this was pretty much mimicked the same thing. And I think to your point, because of the nature of the match, because it was in the Olympics, because it was the gold medal. Um, I mean, the game was definitely played at such a high level. And the second set, it was pretty much the mirror of the first set.
Yeah.
And then I thought Alcaraz would take the second set much earlier. Again, he had a lot of breakpoint chances, um, but Djokovic, give credit to Djokovic. Now, he goes on to win. This is his first gold. I didn't realize, at age 37, uh, this is his first gold after winning the bronze and silver, I think, in previous Olympics. Alcaraz has a long way to go. He's only 21, so I'm sure that he'll be back again. So with that, there was something I saw on the Twitter that Djokovic has completed tennis. So he's got the Australian Open, of course, the Roland Garros, Wimbledon, US Open, 7 ATP finals, 8 year-end number ones, 2 career Golden Masters, 1 Davis Cup, 1 Olympic gold medal. That pretty much completes everything that
Yeah.
anybody in tennis could ask for. So kudos to Djokovic for winning it. I can't wait for the US Open right now because you're going to
Yeah.
see a much healthier Djokovic. Alcaraz is going to be really pumped up. I saw another interview by Sinner. He said he actually watched the entire match and he said it was played at a high level. So he must be itching to get on the court. A little disappointment that he wasn't able to play. So I think if I can get Sinner, Alcaraz, Djokovic, and Medvedev, the US Open, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Um, or even Zverev. I mean, I think for that matter. Um, on the flip side of things, we I want to go to golf because that was an amazing comeback in itself. That was not where um, you didn't expect Scottie Scheffler to win, considering he was 6 strokes off John Rahm. And your thoughts on Scottie? You know what an unbelievable year he's had, right from the time he had at Valhalla, where he got arrested to becoming a father, and then winning more PGA events, and then finally getting the Olympic gold.
Yeah, so I think this kind of after a couple of weeks ago when you were in Europe and Xander won the British Open, the discussion was who was the golfer of the year. You know, it was Xander with his 2 majors or Scottie with his Masters plus I think 5 other tournaments, that most of which were all the elevated PGA events plus the Players Championship. And surprisingly, most of the expert analysts on the radio, TV were kind of favoring Schauffele as the golfer of the year. I was shocked when they were leaning towards him because they just said 2 majors trumps 1 major, even with the other elevated events that Scheffler won. But I think that conversation is now tilted back a little bit after the Olympics. Once again, going into the Olympics, the discussion was, where does this tournament rank among the other tournaments? Obviously it's nowhere near a major. The Olympics, you can't measure it up against the majors. Is it up there with the Players Championship? Arguably, probably not, just because the field isn't the same. But I got a chance to watch. I didn't see a whole lot of the golf this weekend just because of the time difference, and I was watching a little bit of tennis yesterday. Tried watching a little bit back last night. They didn't show a whole lot of Scottie, unfortunately, because he was like 5-6 shots back, so he was kind of making his charge when the leaders were kind of falling back. But you could see the crowds out there, and it kind of had that real all the that patriotic and that feel of a
Right.
Ryder Cup to it. It really had that Ryder Cup feel with the different countries and the fans there and the chants. So even though it didn't have the intensity of say a major, it had all the just all the pomp and circumstance of what you would expect like at a Ryder Cup, and very nationalistic and patriotic. So that was huge. And then Scottie just doing what he did, had a huge Sunday. Shot I think a 62 with like 6 on a par 71 course, so 9 under. I think 6 birdies on the back 9, I believe. But I think the bigger story, I mean, obviously Scottie's a huge story, having a great Sunday, just doing what he does, so steady. He came through with some big birdies on the back 9. But the collapse by John Rahm, I think, was the huge story today, where apparently he had a 5 or 6, I think 5-stroke lead with about
lead. He was
lead,
minus 20, and then Scottie was minus 14 along with Rory.
Yeah, and Fleetwood was right there too. I think Fleetwood, got the silver. Fleetwood's a solid golfer, especially when it comes to like Ryder Cup kind of competitions. And Fleetwood was no surprise that he was right there. He really thrives on this kind of on these kind of team or these kind of events. But I think the bigger story was the collapse by Rahm. He had a few 3 putts. He had a few holes where he just kind of really blew up on, struggled with his off the tee, and then his approach shots, kind of made a mess of a few holes. So he just kind of collapsed. And then I guess the arguments or the discussion is going to be, well, did he collapse just because he's still not used to the competition that he would get from being on the PGA Tour? When you're on the Live Tour, different game. You got all that guaranteed money. You're playing for just you're not. It's not the same thrill of winning and the same same level of competition as you get on the PGA Tour at the elevated events and the majors week in, week out. So yeah, I mean, it's good to see Ron back. He struggled all year. He had a good showing at the British Open. I think he won on the Live Tour, they said a few weeks ago, and now
Mhm.
he had a strong 3 days, his first 3 rounds at the Olympic tournament, but then obviously a huge monumental collapse on the last 6 or 7 holes. But yeah, so I think that comes down to Scheffler. I'm giving him obviously my vote as the obviously golfer of the year, and the argument now is saying, where does it rank among Tiger's best years and Hogan's best years and Arnold Palmer's best years, and that the true analysts and experts, they'll have to hash that one out as far as where this year ranks compared to the others. He only has one major, so you can't really go too crazy with this year, but it was still a pretty amazing year with the overall quality of tournaments that he won. So yeah, and he's got the FedEx tournament. They still have FedEx coming up, so we'll see if he's able to win one or two of those. He's obviously the huge favorite to on the points list right now to win the FedEx. So we'll see where it all plays out. But great win for Scottie, and couldn't happen to a better guy.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, just talking about two things that stood out. One was Scottie's, charge on the final day. Rory had a chance too, and again, he put the ball in the water. And Fleetwood actually had a chance. And then again, the last two holes, 17 and 18, are probably the tougher finishing holes. Just watching the highlights, because it's too early. And then Tommy Fleetwood, I think he got a silver, and Hideki Matsuyama won the bronze. And really sad for Kim. I think looks like he didn't make the podium, which means I
Oh,
think looks like he has to go for the Biltree service in Korea.
yeah, yeah,
That's another story that came out. But it was a great story, or a great picture of Scottie with Kim, who happens to be one of his best friends. But kudos to Scottie. I mean, I think to your point, I mean, obviously, if not for the incident, if not for his caddy, I think he would have won Valhalla. And that's just and I think winning. I think he won like 6 or 7 tournaments this year, and then on top of it, winning the gold medal is signature, especially the way he did it, come back. And so, excellent. But good news for Ram is that he's playing much better this year. So the one other event that we wanted to cover is that, which is the signature event in the Olympics, is Noah Lyles from United States winning the 100 meters. I actually managed to watch some of the 200-meter heats, and he just looked really comfortable. I think that's his main event usually, and 100 is something he added. So I can see him go for the second goal tomorrow. But what a photo finish that was.
yeah.
And it was incredible just watching it live. We're both kind of thinking whether he won it or the Jamaican runner won it. But I think based on what they talked about, it is not uh, your foot, but rather your torso that, or your the part of the body that gets and wins the gold. So 500ths of a second, incredible win for Noah Lyles.
Yeah, I fully agree. There's some events that, just kind of get the adrenaline going when you watch it no matter what. And I would say the Olympic 100-meter sprint is one of the premier, one of those top, 3 events. That maybe the Kentucky Derby, those 2 minutes for horse racing, and maybe like the final lap at the Indy 500 kind of get the adrenaline going. And, it was such a build up to the 100-meter, that's billed as the fastest man on Earth event every 4 years, and it's over in about 9 seconds or less. But it's such drama, and with that photo finish, like you said yesterday, we both learned. I learned at least that it's the torso that crosses first, not the foot, because the Jamaican's foot went across the line first,
Yeah.
but Lyles leaned in with his torso and his chest, and that crossed right before the Jamaicans by I guess .005 thousandth of a second. So kind of crazy, but yeah, good for the American, good for Lyles, and we'll see if he can complete the. I guess it's the triple they're talking about, right? The 200 and is it the
The
400
400
also?
relay, 400 relay. This doesn't get to the
Oh,
this doesn't get to the Carl Lewis kind of. Well,
oh,
to me, I mean, he was probably one of my favorite athletes growing up. Because I ran track in school. So Carl Lewis was the one who won 100, 200, 400, 100, and long jump, which
oh,
I think not going to be replicated again. And I think the previous one before that, if I'm not mistaken, was Jesse Owens in 1936. So
wow.
that goes back a long, long way. So that's pretty much it. I think we will turn our page to, I think the next big event for us coming up is the U.S. Open tennis. Um, Obviously, there are some events in the Olympics which may interest us, but at this point, with the big thing for tennis and golf and some 100 meters, and then kudos to I think Julian Alfred for winning the 100 meter for women. I think Shakari Richardson, a great run by her, but she'll get the fastest woman title, and then fastest man title goes to Noah Lyles. So that's pretty much it from a wrap up. I think this was quick. I know you want to do the recap after the Djokovic win. I don't blame you, but I think it was great. I mean, great win for Joker.
All right. No, I don't have any trivia for you tonight, or for our good friend Pete Sutmeyer either. But we'll have to get some good U.S. Open trivia, and come back with like a daily double for the U.S. Open preview show.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that for me personally, I think from a India standpoint, the Indian men's hockey team is going to be playing for the semifinals tomorrow. They were once dominant. They won 8 goals in a row before they changed the field to AstroTurf. So the field hockey, they're back now. They beat Great Britain, and then they're going to be playing the semifinals tomorrow morning, early in the morning. So looking
Wow.
forward to watching it if I can watch a little bit of it.
Yeah.
So
Well, good.
yep. So that's it. There we are. Thank you, Dan, and thanks for your insight. And we'll talk soon.
All right. Good night.
Hold on. Good night.
Thanks for listening. Primo and Dan will be back soon.